Why do we think that Enki's domain is in southern Africa? There are 1,000,001 reasons. Because there are 1,000,001 channelers that have channeled this information. There are thousands of references in the Sumerian text to Enki himself. There are continued references to the Abzu and many definitions that link the Abzu to the mining of gold. And when you start putting all these bits of information and the facts together, it all points to southern Africa. That doesn't mean that that's the only place that Enki spent his time, but it was certainly where the ancient gold mining empire of Enki was established, because the physical evidence is there in the millions of stone circles, the hundreds of thousands of ancient gold mines, and the huge, vast amount of gold that has been taken out of southern Africa for thousands of years. And now we know that this goes back beyond just thousands of years, when we have references and evidence of, with the Dravidians, with the Sumerians and the Phoenicians getting their gold from Sheba and down the port of Sofala in Mozambique. So we know that the export of gold from southern Africa, Zimbabwe, goes back thousands of years. But now we can push that barrier of time even much, much further back, when we started realizing that this is where Enki set up that ancient gold mining empire that's been doing this for hundreds of thousands of years. And where the Lulu Amelu, or the primitive worker, was created as the slave to the Anunnaki at Adam's calendar, which is well recognized. Once again, this needs to be repeated because people keep forgetting this. This is not new to the African knowledge keepers. They are acutely aware of this, that humanity was created at Inzalo Yelanga, or birthplace of the sun, that are called Adam's calendar. Humanity was created there as a slave to work in the gold mines for the gods. Adam's calendar is an ancient megalithic site in southern Africa, in South Africa, on the edge of a cliff overlooking the Barberton crater, impact crater, which is said to be about 3 billion years old. And it's an ancient site that's well known and recognized by ancient African knowledge keepers, or knowledge keepers of ancient African history, rather than ancient African knowledge keepers. And Johann Heine accidentally stumbled upon it in 2003, while he flew over it in a helicopter to find one of his pilots that crash landed a plane. And he realized that that was not just an accidental arrangement of stones, that it was done by intent. So he came back and started investigating it, and spent about 3 years working on it on his own, until he met me in early 2007, and realized that nobody was interested in this. When I met him in Pretoria in 2007, and he showed me some of the photographs he'd been taking for about 15 years already of the stone circles, aerial photographs of the stone circles throughout southern Africa. He also showed me the work that he did on Adam's calendar, or on the calendar. At that stage it was just called the calendar. And I instantly knew that we're dealing with the main subject matter of my previous book, Slave Species of God. And that was the presence and the physical evidence of the Anunnaki in southern Africa. So began a relationship between Johann and I, and we started working together for a few years, doing more exploring and exploration. But the site is well recognized. It's known as Inzalo Yelanga, or birthplace of the sun, where humanity was created by the gods, and specifically referred to by Credo Mutwa as Enkai, or Enki in the Sumerian text, the creator of the human race. So are you saying that this channel, this passage, was horrible, but up to a point, and then
a slit all the way
open? Okay.
And that's what you see.
I was looking at these stones lying all over here, wondering if they used to be, go further up, and at one stage created a dome.
No, most of the passage tombs do create domes, and that's why people thought these were all covered at one point. But we have actually 2 examples where they were dug out of bogs and preserved. But the courtyard, when you have anything with a circle on it, then they were splitting the astronomy. This is a relatively small one. In Sligo we have them like 5 times bigger than this, but it's always the same type of shape. It's like a long trapezoid monument, central axis running through it, mostly north-south, and sometimes they occur in pairs, where you'll see 2 together when they're a mile of each other. and if the one's on a north-south and the other one's on an east-west axis, and you also have the meridian line on the skyline. What do you reckon?
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And this courtyard is basically just for bringing the horizon down. They would just map things out on the circle then.
What I'm
It's either so. This is
What I'm
35.
puzzled
This
by-
this is 3500 BC that we know carbonated, and they have some shamanic pottery, like shamanic art stuff in Belfast Museum as well.
What I'm puzzled by is why it is filled with soil. Why the site is covered with soil and mounded up.
Yeah.
Or if it was originally just standing stones and a standing passage.
Yeah.
And that at some stage it was the soil's brought in. It was covered in
Washed over.
either washed over or done on purpose, like we
Yeah.
see in Bosnian pyramids,
Pyramids,
where the tunnels have been covered in, and also in Turkey at
Göbekli Tepe.
Göbekli Tepe.
Yeah. Well, some of them were decommissioned. Gavrina's Pasha's tomb was decommissioned like that, and they talk about decommissioning stuff after like 300 years.
Yeah.
You know, after it's done its astronomy, it's done its job.
So this is what I'm thinking is, for me, when I look at Göbekli Tepe, it's very obvious to me that those are, if you remove all the fill, all the rubble,
Yeah.
they are very obvious resonating chambers.
Yeah.
Circles with these plates that go around in a circle that are connected to each other again with these channels, like the stone circles in South Africa. They're very similar in its architecture or
Like
structure.
tuning forks, little tuning forks.
Fork, exactly. Each one of those is a tuning fork, and those circular structures are very powerful resonators.
Yeah.
And then they fill it in to stop it from working.
Okay. that
Okay,
makes
so they
sense.
covered it up so it wouldn't function anymore because they no longer can resonate. And I'm wondering about this as well, because to me, if I see a channel like this and a circle around it, I see acoustic and resonance structures immediately. And then at some stage they were all filled up so they would stop working.
Wow.
That's the first thing that crosses my mind, you know. So somebody was trying to prevent the function of these structures all over the world in ancient times, from the Bosnian pyramid, the tunnels filled in there,
Yeah.
and the tunnels there operate like the lungs of the pyramid. As the air and the air moves through those underground tunnels, it creates a resonance.
And the acoustics as well. The reason I mentioned shamanic pottery was that sometimes the ones that don't have art, they have pottery found here, and it's Neolithic pottery,
Yeah.
3500 BC, and it's always got that shamanic zigzag wave
Yeah.
pattern. It's just, we have Fornox passage tomb with these like sound waves.
Yes.
Gavrini, again, it looks like coalescing waves coming in and
Yes.
mixing together. And I
Yes.
think, personally, I think it's acoustic waves. They were drawing acoustic maps.
Exactly. And not only the waves, not only the ones that are smooth, you can also see it in the chevron effect.
Yeah, it's like a sine,
Zimbabwe.
like a sine wave.
The chevron
Like a
effect
sawtooth.
that is more angular, but
Yeah.
it's just a
Well, that's the Neolithic pottery. They were obsessed with that, and sometimes they and especially in Lockroot, they do a triple water wave. We call them like a sawtooth wave. Sawtooth is the probably best technical
Yes.
term.
Yeah.
But yeah, obsessed with it. Probably more sawtooth waves occur in Ireland than anywhere else. Like.
wow.
Yeah, and the art, and like I said, there's so much art on the island, but Fornox, Lockroot, Carnbane East, Carnbane West, and all the pottery, it's all got that zigzag sawtooth wave line.
Temples in Egypt.
It's
impressive.
fascinating, so once again, I want to come back to the fact that they found pottery here,
Yeah,
just like in the stone circles.
it's so decorative. It's so decorative.
However, the fact that they find pottery, and we find pottery in South Africa of all kinds of cultures, which including the Leidenberg Heads civilization, which remains a mysterious,
Yeah.
vanished culture in Southern Africa, right? And there's very distinct pottery associated with it. That doesn't mean that they built it. It means
Yeah.
that those people came here, they found it, and they were as mystified by it as we are today.
That's a good
and
point.
they used it for hundreds, if not thousands of years as a sacred place, because they saw the ancestors who built it. So they would come here and worship and do ceremony here because they knew,
Yeah.
or they had a much better understanding of the origins of this place.
and left their pottery behind. That doesn't mean that they built
That's
it.
a very good point, because they call the pottery the beaker people, or the beaker pottery.
Exactly.
And the beaker people may just have inherited the monuments. And I personally think
That is, I would almost stake my reputation on that the beaker people did inherit these monuments.
bell
These
beakers.
are much older than the beaker people.
and it's a namesake. They just want to give the pottery a name, so they call it beaker people. And people think it's because it's a beaker, shaped like a beaker. No, the beaker people.
But those are the guys that started using bronze, I think, for the first time, wasn't it?
And when you go to Holland,
These are all aligned.
Holland, Germany, and Denmark, they attribute the beaker people there as the dominant people, but the time frames don't match for the beaker people. It's like the monuments here are more. This is the court tombs are actually 3500 BC and beyond that we know about. That's and we're only proving the last known habitual use of the monument.
Exactly, and that's the occupants of it, not the
Builders
builders
of it.
And
The occupants.
We've got
That's a very
to
good point, Michael.
immediately separate. Habitation does not is not proof of construction.
Yeah,
Because
totally.
you live in the house that you live in doesn't mean you built it.
Yeah.
And the same goes back for thousands of years.
It's a notion we need to, I don't know, reevaluate, or else at least educate people. Educate people.
And that's the same mistake that our archaeologists and our historians make. It's like little children falling into the same trap over and over again. You know?
What was that, Michael? I missed that.
Sorry, they're right. We want to go listen.
Reaching a conclusion that if they find pottery or evidence of a civilization that lived here, they jump to the conclusions
That's the age of it.
that's the age of it.
They're
They're
the
ones that built
occupants.
it.
The occupants of the
They're the
people.
people that came and
used it.
benefited from its existence.
The last known
Like
people.
we're here today, you know, we're gonna, if you throw down some
Nice water bottles over there.
well, there you go.
We built it.
There's some water bottles over there. You know, it's like I often equated, if you pick up a Barbie doll at the Grand Central Station, do you conclude that that's the factory where they make the Barbie dolls?
Yeah.
No.
I'm going to send you guys a copy of the book, and in it I have chapter 7, Ardmore Rock Art, and when you see it you're just going to be so impressed with it, because people are arguing whether these guys are drawing constellations or not, like, and and you have something, I think personally, and you go up to Scotland as well, they were doing stuff up at latitude, actually the megalithic builders of Europe, call them whoever they were up as far as latitude 68, up near the Arctic Circle. People don't even know that. No, they were up as far as northern Norway, and I think they were trying to figure out latitudes. And I think around the latitude of Northern Ireland and Scotland, you get something happening with the moon as well, because the moon's on the horizon, because we're moon going around the equator, bobs up and down 5 degrees, but we had the tilt of the Earth, so it can appear to go from very high to very low on the horizon. But when you get up as far as latitude 55, 54 Northern Ireland and latitude 62 Scotland, the moon's almost going to disappear because it's so low on the horizon. And they used that fact to figure out where they were in a northerly latitude. So I think longitude's a different one, but worker Crichton Miller, he reckons that the Celtic cross was an actual technical artifact. You want to see that research, Michael? It's phenomenal. And he says that they had it as a navigation aid for longitude, but the latitude I think was very easy for these guys, because they used the moon and the northern latitudes. That's why there's so much stuff going on in northern Scotland. It's like a mecca, pardon the pun, for like stone circles and habitation. And it doesn't make sense that they're up so far north. You would think they were doing this down in southern warmer climates, but they were up for a reason. They went to colder climates for a reason.
Not only for a reason, they went to climates where there was grassland and very little trees. And you'll find this in South Africa with the stone circles as well. Those stone circles are mostly in areas that there was very few trees in ancient times, and even with the climate change that may have occurred since then, the trees only came and the vegetation overtook those structures
at a later date,
because they didn't want trees and large vegetation to obstruct the resonance factor of what they were creating. They wanted to be clean and pure of interference, and that's what strikes me here, because this looks to me like it would have been grassland a long time ago.
It's on an unusual hillside as well. It's like halfway up a hill as well, and
that's what you find. All the stone circles, same thing. They had steep angles, some very steep angles up the side of the hill. So this is so reminiscent in so many ways, and I've got to reach the following conclusion. Since it is very obvious to me now that pretty much all the ancient structures, from the pyramids to Borobudur to Saksai Horman to the stone circles of South Africa to Stonehenge, all these were sound acoustic generating and energy generating structures. The place that we mentioned in Turkey, what's it called?
Göbekli Tepe.
Göbekli Tepe. I don't know why I've got a block on it. Göbekli Tepe, same thing, energy generating vibrating plates using sound, acoustics, resonance to generate energy.
There's so much of that
There's
buried
no
in the ground.
reason, I can find no reason that this is any different.
Yeah.
And the structure, a channel leading into a circular structure of standing stones, it is consistent with all ancient structures that can all be linked and connected to using sound and resonance as a tool to activate.
I know particularly in the northeast and the northwest and as far down the top half of Ireland, basically going a band, they are obsessed with quartz. Quartz, like, you can actually
It's everywhere,
as a matter-
James. It's everywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Particularly,
Look at the
we're actually standing here. We're actually standing here in. This is called the Ring of Gullion, by the way, Armagh. So this mountain here, just the highest passage tomb in Europe, 1,800 foot high up there, and this is what you see. This mountain range, it's in a ring shape.
Yes, well, as we're driving up here, I said we're
Looks like a
right
ring.
in the middle of a
You can
valley
actually see the
surrounded by
water.
mountains.
Can you see the water over there?
Oh yes. Oh yeah.
That's towards Dublin Bay.
Yeah. Oh wow.
You can actually, when you're up on top of that mountain at the passage tomb, you can see 60 miles in any direction. You can see a third of Ireland from up there.
Wow.
And you see the quartz where it came from. The where these ladies are from Wicklow. That's where you see as far as Wicklow.
Wow.
Well, you're going to go past Dublin Airport and past, you see Wicklow, and you can see where the quartz came from.
And look, the other thing that people need to realise is that
Line of sight.
well, not only line of sight is important, obviously, as well, because that seems to be consistent as well. But all rock, this rock here, is filled with quartz.
Yeah.
And granites are densely compacted
compacted.
quartz.
Yeah.
It's like, don't think because it's got some other name that is not quartz. Sandstone is quartz.
Quartz,
I mean,
yeah.
it's just, it's sandstone. It's sand. It's quartz. It's the highest form of silica dioxide that you can find.
Yeah, people think granites are the only ones with the quartz in it, and it's
No. Sandstone
No,
is
it's-
like pure sand, which is pure silica dioxide almost,
Here's another example of this acoustic seal, Michael. See this here?
I saw that as we walked in, I saw these barriers here. Yeah?
There's no structural reason for having that there. It doesn't make, you have to step over it. And now you see the box you're in now, Michael?
Yeah.
It's an acoustic seal in that chamber.
Yeah, just point down there again.
This guy here. We call them floor seals in an engineering structure. But this is again the bottleneck. So you're coming down the chamber and it's like that Helmholtz resonator.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you have to step.
Great pyramid. You've got your Helmholtz resonator, and then you've got your King's Chamber.
Yeah.
So this is common, Michael. What happens is people walk in over the centuries. They're kicking it. This was probably a lot deeper. See the you talk about the soil filled in?
Yes.
That was probably down another 2 foot.
Exactly.
So you're going into a box. You're dropping in. You can feel it in here. It's quite a closed-in little space, like.
I might have lost it when I...
That's where I had Anthony on the flute. That's where Anthony was playing the flute, and that's where I had him in the flute here. I'm going to hear the acoustics in here. But
Oh my goodness, yeah.
can you imagine when this thing was corbelled over just a bit more?
Wow.
They're pretty battered. Like, I mean, to be still standing after so much time, and I mean, most farmers are just you know, they did what they did, but I mean, they've just decimated this stuff. Let's go for it.
The selfie of a selfie.
Selfie. Can we do that? A selfie of a selfie. Wow.
And I
all
picture from
good.
this point of view. This vantage point.
You see why I wanted to get you guys up here, because it's so close to Newry as well.
This is awesome.
Yeah, we're so close to the city as well. It's like when you go to Lough Crew, we're going to get you over here anyway, Michael, again. But when you go to Lough Crew, what you have is you have a long chamber, and you've got 3 of these acoustic seals into an octagonal chamber, and then you have these sealing into recesses as well.
Yes.
And it's probably the best example of what I'm talking about, that Helmholtz resonator box, like, and the geometry. It's always the geometry as well.
See, I'm just looking at this whole mound, the soil around it. Why is that here? Why is it?
Yeah, there's a lot of I don't.
Like this?
No, well, they seem to take like they seem to take a definitive triangular shape. There's like a whole.
However, what could be is that these rocks here are not necessarily, they don't have to stand alone. Let me just get one without you in there.
There you go. We're still on camera. Here.
Stella, would you mind stepping to your left a bit? Thank you. So,
And this is another common one where they put a side door on it as
Yes.
well. This
but
and
you see, I don't think it's a side door.
well, not a side door. I say that as a layman's language.
Yeah.
Here's
the channel that.
Here's the thing. What I like about what you say. There's a technical acoustic reason. They have repeated this design
Yes.
again and again, just within Northern Ireland. Okay.
Yes.
I take you to 100 miles to the west. Exact same design, same layout. And like, well, somebody had the same blueprint.
Yes.
Took it there, marched 100 miles across
Yes.
the landscape,
Yes.
middle of nowhere,
Yes.
same blueprint.
So-
and time again. And here's the thing. You get miniature versions and really big versions,
Yes.
but it's always the same.
Always the same,
blueprint.
yeah.
It's incredible. There's one of these in Donegal, and it's a baby. And when I say you could walk from there to there, and it's the exact same layout. It's just basically one room and the little floor sill, and it's just a miniature. And then you take one to where Ray goes to in Sligo, and it's a monster. It's probably 20 times bigger. And you're like, why repeat the
It's brilliant.
But
Look at the circles in Göbekli Tepe. Some are smaller, some are bigger.
I was slow to the table. I with Maria. I brought Maria Wheatley over to talk about earth energies and something. She was dowsing them, and she's saying that within the core tombs, when you go into these rooms within rooms, this is why you have sometimes 2 and 3 rooms in one room. You can get spiral vortexes. She dowses them and gets the spiral vortexes, and you can see. I've dowsed them. I've handed them to people, the dowsing rods that don't even dowse. You haven't even seen what Maria done, and they're finding them in the same place. They're all finding the same spiral patterns on, and it's like it's always in the center of the room that you're in. Like.
This is fantastic. I'm so glad you brought us up here.
Well, it was so close.
excited.
That's why I can't let you go, Michael, without seeing.
This is fantastic. At least I can say I've seen
At
ancient
least.
Irish ruin. You know?
I know.
I've been here and I can say that I've seen it and not just heard about it, because that's
Yeah.
I can't stand it. You know, it's like
Yeah. This is actually pretty well visited, this one. There's some lovely, you'll see, I'll send you a picture of this one online. There's like the snow-peaked hills, like, and the sunsets here are amazing. Like.
see, I'm seeing all these stones sticking out, and this doesn't make sense to me,
Well,
because these stones should not be covered.
No.
They should be sticking out, and they should be vibrating and resonating and picking and adding to the resonance of this.
The shape of this mound here, you see the picture over there. That's pretty much what it looked like, and the reason they're showing you a picture over there, just stones sticking up, is the ones that we dug out of the bog that were preserved.
Yeah,
so
okay.
And it was always the same type, like 2 horns on a monument. The ones in Sardinia are in the shape of a bull's head as well. So they maybe put some anthropomorphic, outline on it like that, but cairn material, filling it up, cobblestones, and then the acoustic chambers.
Isn't your head getting cold, James?
A little bit. A little bit. My hands are like ice. This is April in
I can't
Ireland.
believe it. It's just ridiculous. I was in Malaga, Marbella, Spain, and I was walking around in a t-shirt.